Let's make mixed media winter landscapes. Hey there, it's Laurie from the art studio at Madison Children's Museum. Today we're going to be painting these mixed media winter landscapes. This is going to be a great opportunity to practice blending colors and also using a variety of different art materials and techniques in one piece of art. Let me tell you what you're going to need to do this project. So today we're going to be making a painting for our background. So you're going to need a large piece of paper for painting on. Now this could be a light colored paper that's any type that you enjoy painting on. It doesn't need to be thick, it could be a thinner piece of paper, whatever you prefer. We're also going to be using our tempera paint today, and we're going to be using a color palette that is all blue and purple and white. So tempera paint is that washable kids paint. It's an opaque paint that you can't see through. And I've got my white, and then I also found my different blues. I've got a dark blue, a lighter blue, and a dark purple, and a lighter purple. And we're going to stick to just those colors for our project. The other materials that you're going to need, we're going to be using a roll of tape and a pencil to make our round moon. Now you could find something else that's round to trace around, like a coffee cup or a food can. It doesn't have to be a roll of tape. We're also going to be using paper for one step of our project. I've got some black construction paper and I've got some white office paper. You could use white construction paper as well, and a pair of scissors. I got my hole punch out because I'm going to show you one little trick that you might want to use using a hole punch, but this is optional. And then for our finishing touches, I've got my pack of oil pastels. These are also called crayons. They're kind of like a waxy crayon. And this is an optional step. I'm also going to show you how you can use paint for the final step of your artwork to put the finishing touches on. Are you ready to get started? All right, let's get started. First of all, I'm going to prepare a work area for my painting. So I'm going to use a tabletop that has glass on it so that I can paint all around the outside and then wipe it down later. But you might want to put an old piece of paper bag or cardboard or scrap paper underneath your painting to work on your artwork. What we're going to be doing first, I'm going to find my round object. It could be a coffee cup or a roll of tape like I'm using, and I'm going to be using my round object to make a space where my moon for my landscape is going to go. So you could decide where you want your moon to be. I'm going to put it up in the corner over here. So I'm going to use my pencil and trace around, and this is going to show where my moon is going to go. Now let's get ready to do our painting. So I have a palette that I made out of an old paper plate, and I have all of my colors ready to go. So I have my white tempera paint, and then I have a light blue, a dark purple, and a lighter purple. You could experiment with this project and use all the different blues that you can find in your painting kit. What we're going to be using to do our painting is a big fluffy brush. I've got a pretty good sized fluffy round brush here. And your painting, this step will go a lot better if you use a brush that's a bit bigger. And we're going to be using a technique called wet on wet. We're going to be blending one wet color into another wet color. So let's get started. First, we're going to be making a white area that's going to go around our moon, because if you ever look on a really beautiful moonlit night, you can see that the moon creates this glow around it in the sky. So I'm going to get my white tempera paint on my brush, and now I'm going to paint around where my circle is for the moon. Now don't worry about painting inside of your circle. We're going to be adding a cut paper moon on top. So this is just going to go the shape where it is. So you see how I'm painting around in circles to make my glow where my moon is. Now watch what I'm going to do next. I'm going to get some white paint on my brush, and then I'm going to touch my brush into my lighter color of blue here, and I'm going to come around the outside of where the white is, and I'm going to blend that light blue into my white. Watch. Isn't that pretty? Now you don't have to blend it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick up a little more white, a little more light blue. You don't have to blend it really smooth into your white, but you can if you want to. This is going to be your own artwork. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to lightly blend wet on wet. See how I'm making that light blue blend into the white just by going over it a bunch of times without getting any more paint on my brush? And I can go around and around and around. Isn't that beautiful how it's blending? You can also leave your white and blue a little rougher, like so. See how I'm doing here? I'm not going to blend that in so much. I'm going to leave kind of lines. And see how it's good to have something on your table that you can use for your background so that you can paint right off the edge of the table? Now I'm going to go back and put just that lighter blue on my brush, and I'm going to blend that wet on wet into my lighter blue. So I keep going back. I'm going to pick up a little bit more, and I'm going to blend that all around, going back into my lighter blue, just like that, wet on wet. This is a really great painting technique to practice, blending your colors like this and getting a beautiful gradation. So I'm going a little bit further out from my moon now. And even younger children can have fun with this. We are really just learning about painting, so you don't have to worry about your paint blending being perfect. We are going to be experimenting, and we're going to put so many layers over this that you can have a roughly painted area and it will still look really beautiful. So my next ring outside my moon, I'm going to pick up that darker color of blue, and I'm going to blend that going over that area where it meets the lighter blue. And down at the bottom of my page, we're going to be adding another layer of paper down there, so I don't have to worry too much about getting that area really perfect. So now that I've got my dark blue, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that dark purple and start blending the dark purple into my blue. Doesn't that look beautiful? And I'm just going over and over and over, blending wet onto wet. And then just for fun, I'll pick up a little bit of this lighter purple. Wow, this looks just like a beautiful dark night sky. And I'm going to take that all the way down here, and then I'm going to go over any areas back and forth that I think need to be blended a little bit more. And down at the bottom here, I'm not going to worry too much about this area because I'm going to be covering it up. All right, now are you happy with how your blending looks? If not, you can go over it a second time until you're happy with how your background looks. Now, we're going to be setting aside our painting and we're going to be doing the next step, which is going to be using cut paper to add to our mixed media artwork. So I'm going to take my wet painting and lay it aside to dry, and now I'll get one that I did before. Here is a painting that I did yesterday, so it's all dry, and you can see the beautiful gradations of color here. Now we're going to be making a cut paper circle to glue in this area where our moon is, so it'll look nice and bright. So I'll take my roll of tape and I'm going to trace around it with my pencil, and then I'm going to be cutting it out. Now I'm doing a big full moon because I think that is going to make the best look for my painting. Now if you want your painting to have a crescent moon, you could do that as well. but this beautiful full moon that lights up the whole sky, that's kind of what I was thinking when I decided to make this painting. Now we're going to be gluing our moon right on top of that circle that we drew. I'm going to be using my white glue in a bottle, my Elmer's glue. If you want to use a glue stick instead, you can do that. And this will cover up those pencil lines and the edges of your painting. There we go, and I'll smooth that down. Now we're going to be using some more of our white paper. I've got another sheet of white paper here, and I'm going to be using this white paper to create some snowy hills down at the bottom of my painting. Now I'm going to do that by tearing my paper instead of cutting it. So this is really fun for younger children to practice too. I'm going to be using my pincer fingers, my thumb and my first finger, to hold the edge of my paper. And I'm going to start tearing it. Now I can move my hands. I'm going to tear it so that I'm making these sort of bumps across. Now you can practice your tearing, maybe tear a few pieces and then pick your favorites. Like I like how this looks. Here, actually, I might use this section of paper instead of the other one. I'm going to tear it across, maybe make a few more hills. See how I'm shifting my fingers around there? Now, let me arrange my paper down at the bottom of my artwork so that I can create some snowy hills. I'm going to arrange them until I like the way that they look. I'm going to start with this smaller section over here. I'm going to glue this down with my white glue. I hope we get some snow soon, because it is really lovely to look out on a full moon lit night and see beautiful hills of snow on the ground. So here I'm smoothing down my white paper with the torn edge. See how that looks like a nice, beautiful hill of snow? And I'm going to place my other piece here until I'm happy with where it is. I'm going to put my glue on the back of that. And I can trim off any extra pieces later. So I'm going to let this go off the edge of my page a little bit, and then I can trim it when I'm all done. So I'm going to line that up. There we go. So now I've got my snowy hills. So what our picture is going to need next is, I think it needs a little bit more of something in this area, right? It's got this big sky and our ground down here. So we're going to add some trees. To make my trees, what I'm going to go for here is sort of the dark silhouettes of trees that you'd see that are dark in the foreground. The foreground is closer to you, and then we can have our moon in the background. So let me show you, I'm going to put this aside so I can show you a little trick about making these tall triangles that are going to be our trees. So I'm going to take my sheet of construction paper and I'm going to make a fold. I'm going to make a fold with the short side, not all the way to the other end of the paper, just a flap like this. And now I can use my pencil and I'm going to start right up at the very top of that fold, and I'm going to make a line, a tilted line that goes all the way to the edge of my fold. Now, if I wanted to, I could use a straight edge. I could use a ruler or something flat to make a straighter line. But for now, I'm just going to use my pencil freehand and make just a freehand line there. Now, I'll take my scissors and I'm going to cut through both of those sides pieces of paper with my scissors along that line that I drew with my pencil. So our tree right now is going to look just like a big tall triangle. So what I'd like to do is I want to make some little cuts out of the side that will look like the branches of an evergreen tree coming down. So I'm going to draw some lines with my pencil to show you where we want to make our cuts. I'm going to make a little triangle bite out of the edge of my triangle, just like this. I'm going to kind of tilt them down a bit. Now, younger children, you can let younger children do this step of the artwork by just practicing with their scissors and making lots of angled cuts into your tree. But watch what we're going to be creating here. When we cut through both sides and make our triangle cutouts, these are going to start to look like branches. You see, I'm not going all the way to the other side. I'm just cutting about halfway. And up at the top here, I'm going to keep going until I'm about all the way to the top, but I'm going to leave a tip there, a triangle tip. So watch what this looks like when I open it up. Look at that, it's a tree shape. Now these trees can be anything that you want. In fact, if you have an idea to make some black paper silhouettes of things other than trees, maybe you could have in the foreground, there could be a snowman, or there could be silhouettes of people. I want to do 3 trees for my picture. So I'm going to trace, after I've folded my flap like this, I'm going to be tracing another triangle, but I'm going to make it start a little bit further down on my folded paper because I want this tree to be a little bit shorter. And then again, I will use my scissors and I'm going to cut along where my lines are. And remember how we made those branches? Oh, I got a little bit, I think this is some white paint on my tree. It'll look like snow. So now, oh, I have white paint on my scissors. Oh my. Right, I wiped those off. Let's make some cuts. These I'm just doing freehand. These are fun to just do randomly. Like you can imagine if small friends are doing this project, you might get a little bit more random cuts like this. I'll show you what that looks like when you open it up. They really look pretty neat, even if you cut them a little bit crookedy. Let's open this tree up. Oh, I like that one. There's my second tree. Now I'm going to fold my paper one more time and I'm going to make a third tree that is a bit shorter. So I'll fold my paper again, and this time I'm going to start my line even further down, and I'm going to make a shorter and fatter little tree. Cutting along my line, and then cutting those triangles to make branch shapes. I'm going to make this one a little bit crookedier. I don't know if crookedier is a word. I think it should be. More crooked. All right. There is my third paper tree. So let's come back to our landscape and then we'll arrange our trees, our tree silhouettes. Now remember how I said before, if there's something you want to add to your painting instead of trees or in addition to the trees, you can use your imagination. I'm going to start these way at the bottom of my paper here and arrange them overlapping a little bit. I think that looks really nice. So what I'll do is I'm going to get my white glue out and then I'm going to glue my trees down on my paper. Remember, you can use a glue stick if you prefer a glue stick. I'm going to start that tree down at the very bottom because it's going to be right in the what you call the foreground of the painting. That's going to be the thing that is closest to your eyes. So here is my second of my third trees. I'm going to place it here. And my third tree. It's the tallest and the skinniest of my 3 trees. All right, so when I'm done with this, what I'm going to add to finish off my landscape is I think it should be a snowy day. I think it should be snowing in my picture. So I want to add some snowflakes in front of everything in my landscape. So let me show you a couple different ways that you can add a beautiful snowstorm to your picture. One of the ways I like to do this is with my oil pastels. I'm going to choose a white oil pastel, and this is going to let you go over the top of your background and add these white snowflakes over the top of your painted background. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to just make these round little marks all across. Now I might want to have some in front of my tree shapes as well. Now let's try a different way of making snowflakes. This time I'm going to use a small and round paintbrush and my white tempera paint. And I'm going to use my white tempera paint on top of my background that I've let dry. I'm going to make little dots, and that makes beautiful snowflakes as well. So I think this will be a gorgeous picture if you fill the sky with snow, and you can think about having a drink of hot chocolate, maybe some beautiful jingly bells in the background. Maybe there's a fireplace with a log crackling. So here's my painted snow. So another thing that you could do, this is why I had my hole punch that I showed you at the very beginning. There is another way we can make snow, and that is by using our hole punch and a scrap of white paper and hole punching out all of these little circles of pretend snow. Now, if you do this, each one of those little circles is going to need a little bit of glue on it. And so this way of making snow might take a bit more time because you're going to have to glue each little round cutout onto the background using a little bit of glue. But I enjoy the punching out part much better than the gluing on part. Now I suppose if you wanted to, you could try adding some of these circles onto your wet painted background and see if they help stick to your background just with the paint. I haven't tried that, but it might be worth a try. At least you could keep the ones that didn't fall off. Let me finish up my painting by adding a few more snowflakes. You can add as much snow as you want. Now, something else that you might want to do, you can use, I'm going to use a black oil pastel here, and I think I might want to draw something in the foreground here. I'm going to make it look like, let me think, what should I add? I think I'm going to do a deer, because sometimes you see a deer out in a snowy landscape. I'm going to fill that in. You can add whatever you wanted to the front of your picture. This is all optional. I'm going to have some antlers. There, I think that'll be my finished painting. Now, I think you'll enjoy this process of mixing all these different media together to create your own artwork. You can even come up with other media that you might want to use if you have watercolors or if you have colored pencils or markers to add to your painting. I really enjoyed making this winter landscape. I hope you did too. If you want to take a picture of your finished artwork and post it here in the comments, I'm sure we'd all love to see. Happy winter, everybody!